Hey YouTubers, welcome to the Cyber Overwatch channel. I am Pragmatic1. In this video, we'll be doing a walkthrough of TryHackMe's Billing Vulnerable Host. This is an easy level room released in 2025, and it covers some genuinely practical techniques, exploiting a real-world CVE in a VoIP billing application for unauthenticated remote code execution, and then escalating privileges by abusing a misconfigured security tool that ironically is designed to protect systems. Let's get into it. In this walkthrough, I'll cover the complete attack lifecycle: reconnaissance, enumeration, exploitation, and post-exploitation. Specifically, I'll perform port scanning, web application enumeration to identify a Magnus billing installation, researching and exploiting CVE-2023-30258, an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability using a Metasploit module to land a shell as the asterisk service account, and finally escalating to root by abusing a pseudo misconfiguration on the fail-to-ban client binary. If you find this content informative and you are interested in cybersecurity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Cyber Overwatch channel. Also, for more free content, please regularly check back on www.cyberoverwatch.com. Billing is a vulnerable host created by TryHackMe. It simulates a Linux server running a publicly exposed Magnus billing VoIP billing platform with a critical unpatched CVE, combined with a dangerous pseudo misconfiguration on a security tool that gives root access to an attacker who already has a foothold. Let's break down the attack surface using the MITRE ATT&CK framework. T1595.002. Active scanning. Nmap is used to perform a full port scan, identifying SSH on port 22, Apache on port 80, serving Magnus billing, and MySQL on port 3306. T1190. Exploit public-facing application. CVE-2023-30258 is an unauthenticated command injection vulnerability in Magnus Billing's IcePay module. No credentials are required to trigger remote code execution on the server. T1059.004 Command and Scripting Interpreter Unix Shell. The Metasploit module for CVE-2023-30258 injects a payload through a crafted GET request to the vulnerable PHP endpoint, establishing a interpreter session as the asterisk service account. T1548.003 Abuse Elevation Control Mechanism, Sudo and Sudo Caching. The asterisk user has passwordless sudo access to the fail-to-ban client binary. Fail-to-ban ban action mechanism can execute arbitrary commands as root, allowing full privilege escalation without exploiting any additional vulnerability. The Billing Vulnerable Host has been deployed and its IP address is visible on the TryHackMe dashboard. The first phase is reconnaissance. Let me map what's running before I start attacking. I'll fire up Nmap with the full port scan using the command shown in the CLI. With the scan completed, the results show 3 open ports. Port 22, I can see that the SSH service is up and running on the Debian host. Since I don't have any credentials yet, I won't focus on it right now. Port 80, HTTP. It appears that an Apache web server is running. The Nmap output flags the path /mbilling, which immediately is interesting. This is a well-known path associated with Magnus Billing, a VoIP billing management platform. This will be my primary target. Port 3306, MySQL. Nmap shows a database service is running. This is almost certainly the back end of the Magnus billing application. It's running locally and not directly exposed to exploitation without credentials, but it tells me what I'm dealing with. OS fingerprinting confirms that the target host is a Debian Linux host. 3 ports, focused attack surface. Let's navigate to port 80 and see what exactly is running. Navigating to the target IP on port 80 redirects me to the /mbilling path, which loads the Magnus Billing login page. Looking at the browser tab, the application name is visible. Now that I have confirmed it is Magnus Billing, I now need to identify the version that is running. I opened up developer tools to see what files are being loaded. I opened up each file and analyzed the contents. Most files were pretty much gibberish, but I did find one file called blackneptune.json that had some interesting content. There were several values pointing to version 6.2.0.981. With a manual review of the page source and loaded files complete, I decided to crawl the website. I ran the following fluff command, and when the scan completed, it found several directories and pages. I reviewed all the pages and directories found, and the README file provided me with the information I needed. I was able to confirm that the Magnus billing application was version 7, not version 6 like I initially thought. Now with the version confirmed, let me search for possible published exploits for that version. Looking at the results, there are references to remote code execution vulnerability CVE-2023-30258. This seems to be a good place to start. There is a Rapid7 page referring to the command injection vulnerability and a exploit DP page, so I think I'll check Metasploit to see if it has a module for Magnus Billing. Magnus Billing is an open-source web-based VoIP billing and management platform built on PHP. It's used by telecommunication companies and service providers to manage customers' call routing, invoicing, and rate tables for voice over IP services. Core functionality. Magnus Billing provides a web-based admin panel for managing accounts, call detail records, payment gateways, and interconnect billing. It sits on top of a Linux server typically running Asterisk, an open source telephony engine, alongside Apache and MySQL. Attack surface. From a penetration testing perspective, Magnus Billing is interesting because it is a publicly exposed web application with PHP backend, a known history of security vulnerabilities, and components that accept user-controlled input without sufficient validation. Its payment integration modules, including IcePay, have historically contained injection flaws. CVE-2023-30258. Version 7 of Magnus Billing contains an unauthenticated command injection vulnerability in the IcePay payment modules, IcePay.php endpoint. The democ get parameter is passed directly into the system call without sanitization, allowing an attacker with no credentials to execute arbitrary OS commands as the web server user. This vulnerability has a public Metasploit module and is trivially exploitable. With Magnus Billing version confirmed on port 80, I ran MSF console to open up Metasploit, and I'll search for Magnus Billing in Metasploit. Metasploit returns a module for CVE-2023-30258. I typed use 0 and hit enter to select this module, and I'll run show options to review the required options. The required options are straightforward. R hosts in R port for the target IP and port, L host and L port for my system IP and listening port. The serve port sets the port that my system listens to serve the exploit, which is different from the L port, which is the port that listens for a session connection after the payload has been executed. Last, I need to set the target URI, which tells Metasploit which endpoint to target. I set the options, and I'll hit enter to execute the exploit. The exploit fires, and based on the output, a Meterpreter session opens. I ran the following command shown in the Meterpreter prompt to confirm what user context I'm running in. The session returns Asterisk, the service account that the Asterisk telephony engine and Magnus Billing run under. This is a low-privileged service account, but it's our initial foothold on the machine. Now that I have a foothold on the target host with an active Meterpreter session as Asterisk, I need to enumerate the target host and look for the user flag before investigating privilege escalation paths. I executed the shell command to switch to the system shell. Now that I switched over, I need a stable shell. I ran the following commands shown in the CLI to stabilize the shell. With my shell stabilized, I can now see the user context and current working directory in the prompt. It looks like I'm in the IcePay folder. I ran the following chained commands shown in the CLI. The output confirmed three things. One, I am running as the Asterisk user. I'm on a Debian system, and I can see the contents of the IcePay folder. Now let's look for the user flag. The first privilege escalation check I always run is sudo-l. This shows what commands the current user can execute with elevated privileges without a password. The output shows something immediately exploitable. The Asterisk user can run /user/bin/fail-to-ban-client as root with no password required. This is a significant misconfiguration. Fail-to-ban is a security tool, and like many powerful system utilities, if you can run it as root, you can abuse it to execute arbitrary commands. Fail-to-ban is an open source intrusion prevention framework for Linux systems. It monitors log files for repeated failed authentication attempts and automatically blocks offending IP addresses by modifying firewall rules. Core functionality. Fail-to-ban watches log files for patterns such as repeated failed SSH login attempts and when defined thresholds is crossed. It executes a configured ban action against the offending IP. Ban actions are typically IP table commands, but they can be configured to execute any arbitrary shell command. The privilege escalation vector. The fail-to-ban client binary communicates with the running fail-to-ban daemon, which executes actions as root. When the attacker has sudo access to fail-to-ban client, they can modify the ban action for a jail. For example, using the SSH jail to execute an arbitrary command instead of or in addition to the standard firewall rule. When a ban is triggered, fail-to-ban executes that command as root. Why this misconfiguration exists. System administrators sometimes grant service accounts like Asterisk sudo access to fail-to-ban to allow the telephony application to dynamically ban abusive callers or SIP scanners. The intent is legitimate, but the consequences is that the Asterisk account effectively has root code execution through the ban action mechanism. Now that we understand the vulnerability, let's exploit it. The technique involves modifying the ban action of the SSHD jail to execute a custom command as root, then triggering the ban action manually using fail-to-ban client itself. First, I ran the following commands shown in the CLI to check the existing fail-to-ban configuration to understand the jail structure. Before I attempt to exploit fail-to-ban, I'm going to start my netcat listener. I ran the following commands shown in the CLI. Going back to the fail-to-ban status command, based on the output, I can see that the SSHD jail is active. Now I'll modify the ban action to execute a command that creates a reverse shell to my system. The key command structure is set jailname, in this case SSHD, action, which is IP tables multiports, action ban. I entered the bash reverse shell one-liner, which overrides what gets executed when a ban fires. With the action overridden, I need to trigger a ban. I'll run the following fail to ban client command shown in the CLI to manually ban an IP address, which will fire the modified action ban command as root. The ban fired, and I can see my netcat listener appears to have caught a shell. Based on the whoami command I ran, I am now the root account. I ran the following commands shown in the CLI to change directory to the root home folder and to view the contents. I can see the root.txt file containing the final flag. I ran the cat command to view the contents of the root.txt file. The root flag is captured, full system compromise is achieved. Thank you for watching this walkthrough of TryHackMe's billing. I executed the full attack lifecycle, starting with an nmap scan that identified Apache on port 80 serving a Magnus billing installation, researching the application and identifying CVE-2023-30258, an unauthenticated command injection in the IcePay module using the Metasploit module to land a Meterpreter shell as the * service account, capturing the user flag from the Magnus home directory, discovering that * has passwordless sudo access to the fail-to-ban client, understanding how fail-to-ban action mechanism executes shell commands as root, and abusing the mechanism to read the root file, and abusing the mechanism to create a reverse shell overriding the SSHD jails ban action. What makes this machine particularly valuable is the fail-to-ban escalation technique. It demonstrates a class of privilege escalation that security teams frequently overlook misconfigured security tools that themselves become attack vectors. A tool installed to protect a system becomes a key to compromising it completely. Thank you for also checking out the Cyber Overwatch channel. If you find this content informative and you are interested in cybersecurity, please like and subscribe to the Cyber Overwatch channel. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments or reach out through the Cyber Overwatch website linked in the description. Until next time, keep learning. The only way to improve is to keep learning. Pragmatic1, signing off.